Okay, the lecture today is going to be on chapter 10. It's going to be 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. Okay, 2.1, I gave you this sheet. I'll show you how to use it in a minute. The first thing it wants you to do is to put numbers on the number line. Okay, you already know how to do 1, 2, 3, right? You know how to do those numbers. On a number line from 0 going back, they get bigger as you go farther to the left. Okay, if you were going to put the number 1 2/3, you would go to the 1 and then 2/3 more, right? So you put a dot about right there. If it had given you the number 5/3, you would have converted it to this so you could see where to put it on the number line. Okay, let's say you had -3 halves. Okay, convert that to a mixed number so you can see where you need to put it. 3 halves goes 1 time and then 1 half. So you're going to do -1 and 1 half. So go back -1 and then half the way to the -2. If you had a -5/3, it's still going to convert to 1 2/3, but it'll be a negative, right? So you'll go -1 and 2/3. It's going to be closer to the 2 than to the halfway point. This one is 1 1/2. This one, actually -1 1/2. This one is -1 and 2/3. Okay? If you need to convert it to decimal and they give you a negative number, you do it the same way you convert any other fraction. Say you have -1 half, it'd still be the same as 1 1/2. You do 1 divided by 2. 2 into 10 is 5. So 0.5 is a -0.5. So you just put the negative in front of it. You convert it the same as you would the way you learned to do it before. Okay, if you're comparing numbers, okay, if you're comparing numbers, think about where they go on the number line. You already know how to compare positive numbers, 2 and 5. 2 is less than 5. You already knew that. Okay, now we're going to put some negatives in there. Okay? Let's say a -2. Is that still less than 5? Yeah. Okay. This greater less than sign, what you can do is think about it being telling you which direction it is on the number line. The 2 is to the left of the 5 on the number line. So you can use that part of the arrow. See here you have your number line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the 2 and the 5. The 2 is to the left of the 5. The -2, it's still to the left of the 5, right? Now let's use both negative numbers. Let's put a -2 and a -5. Now where is the -2? When you look at the -5, the -2 is that direction, isn't it? You're better off just owing $2 than owing $5. It's that direction. It's greater. You're better off. A +2, -5. positive 2, it's still to the right. It's still greater. It's better to have $2 than to owe $5. See, that's better. It's greater. Is that making sense at all? Yeah? Okay. Another concept that you have in here is absolute value. These two lines mean absolute value. Absolute value is asking you how far is it from 0. Or just say it's positive. Okay? If you have absolute value of 3, it's 3 from 0, right? Absolute value of negative 3, that's also 3 from 0. So see, it's just the positive of whatever's in here. You don't always change the sign. See, this one you didn't have to change it. But when you come out with an answer here, it's always going to be positive when it's absolute value. So if you have a fraction that says negative 1 1/2 with absolute value of it, what's the answer going to be?
1 1/2.
1 1/2. Okay? So if it has absolute value signs, all you got to do is write it down positive. And that's all of 10.1 right there. 10.2, you're adding. It says adding real numbers. It could also be called adding integers. G-E-R-S, sorry. Integers are all the negatives and 0 and all the positives. Okay? So this means we're going to be adding numbers, and they could either be both positive, both negative, or a positive and a negative. Okay? It could be a mixture of anything. And since a lot of people know how to add numbers when it comes to owing money and having money, that's usually a good way to look at these numbers as money. If you have a negative 3, think of it as owing $3. Okay? If it's a positive number, think of it as having that money. Okay? If it was negative 3, think of it as owing 3. Okay. What if you owe $3 and you have another bill of $5? You owe $8 altogether, don't you? You owe $8. What if you owe $3 and you have $5 in your pocket? You owe 3, you have 5. So if you paid that $3 off, would you still owe, or would you have money left? You'd have money left, right? How much?
$2.
$2. Okay, see what you did here? You had more than you owed, so your answer is positive. You still have money left. Okay? Let's say you owed $5 and you got $3 in your pocket. If you paid that $3, what would be left?
You owe $2.
You still owe $2, right? So if they have different signs, you have to subtract them. See how you had to subtract these to get the number sign? But if you're adding two negatives, you're keeping that sign. You're not going to have $8 if you got two bills. You got a bill and a bill, and you add those bills up. So if they're the same sign, you're going to keep that sign and then add the numbers. If they're different signs, you keep the sign of the biggest one, the larger number, and then you subtract them. The top of this paper I just gave you, that's what it's telling you. Okay? Okay, you add two positives, it's gonna be positive and you add them. That's just normal numbers. You add two negatives. That's this one right here. If you add two negative numbers, the sign of your answer is negative, and you're gonna add the numbers. If you have a negative and a positive, that was like these. A negative and a positive, the answer will have the sign of the larger number, and then you subtract the numbers. Okay, so that's how you read this top part right here. Okay, what if you have a big long string of numbers that you're having to add? Let's do, sorry. Okay, let's do number 49. It has, is it after my class? No. 75 plus a negative 14 plus negative 17 plus negative 5. Okay, you've got three of them that are negatives, right? If you had a bunch of bills laying around, and if you had $75 in your pocket, and you had a bill for 14, a bill for 17, and a bill for 5, would you like subtract one bill, then subtract the next bill, and subtract the next bill? Probably not. You would add all those bills up and see how much you owe all together. So when you have a big string of them that's just all add and subtract numbers, get all your negatives together, add them up. So you got 14, 17, and 5. So 16, $36 in bills. There's 36 negatives there and 75 positives. So you're adding a positive and a negative, right? So you're going to subtract this. It's a sign of the larger. So you're going to have money left over after you pay those bills. So you're just going to do your 75 minus 36. So you'll have $39 left after you do that. So instead of going left to right and subtract, that gives you a lot of room to make errors. So just combine all the positives, combine all the negatives. You have one time that you subtract. So, like on number 50, you have 28 plus a negative 44 plus 17 plus 31 plus negative 94. Okay, add up all the bills. You have two negatives there to add up. 4 and 4 is 8, 9 and 4 is 13. So you have 138 in bills, and there's maybe 3 people that have some money here. Put it all together. You have the 28 plus the 17 plus 31. So you have 16, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. $76 altogether. So you have 76 positive and 138 negative. So what's your answer going to be? You've got more bills. Yeah, you're still going to owe, right? Mm-hmm. Even with all the people putting their money together, you still owe money. So you need to subtract it to see how much you're still going to owe.
Negative
138 minus 76. 62?
Mm-hmm.
You're still going to owe 62. You're better off writing the sign first so you don't forget which sign you're doing. Okay, if it asks you to do the opposite of a number, let's do that. Opposite. What do you think the opposite of negative 8 would be?
Positive
Positive 8, right. What's the opposite of 16? negative 16. So the opposite, or it's also called additive inverse, all you have to do is change the sign. Okay? So anything that says opposite, just change the sign on it. Okay, it also has some problems where you do find negative x when, okay, then it'll tell you x is, say x is 26. Negative x is just the same as the opposite of x. Okay? So if x is this, negative x will be negative 26. So your answer, you just have to change the sign, just like you would for opposite. And then it has some that say find negative x. What's the opposite of an opposite?
Positive.
It's the same thing, right? So the opposite of the opposite is going to be whatever x is. So if it says x is 26, the opposite of the opposite is still going to be 26, right? What if it tells you x is negative 24? The opposite of the opposite is still going to be the same thing, negative 24. So if it has one negative, you change the sign. If you have two negatives, it just stays the same. You put those two negatives together. Let's put two negatives together. Put them together and make it a plus. Make it plus positive. On this sheet here, if you see two negatives together, like minus negative, the same as plus a positive. Okay? And what else do you have to do? Subtracting numbers. That's where we're going to use the middle of that paper. Okay. Let's say we have 6 minus 1. You already know it's 5, right? Okay, now think of this as being a positive 6 and a negative 1. Our addition rules told us to keep the sign of the larger, which is positive, and to subtract them. See how that came out the same? You're adding a positive and a negative. Okay, now let's put negative 6 minus 1. Okay, remember, minus 1 is the same as adding a negative 1.
Negative 5.
No? It's like having two
Oh.
bills.
That'd be 5.
No? Remember our rules up here. If we add two negatives, our answer is negative and we add them. So it's negative 7. If you have a bill for 6 and another bill for 1, you owe $7. Okay. So the subtraction stuff, what you're going to do when you see a minus somewhere, if you have 4 minus, well, let's put negative 4, minus 3. Okay, look at our subtraction rules on this. 4 minus 3 is still there. Subtraction rules say, change the subtraction to addition and change the sign behind it. What that means is change the subtraction to addition and change the sign behind it. So you're adding negative. Just like I told you, -1 is adding a -1. So you change the minus to plus a negative. Okay? So this would be two of the same sign. When you're adding two negatives, it's negative and you add. So it's negative and add. So what's it going to be if you have -8 minus 2? First you want to show that this one is adding a negative. So what's the answer?
-10.
-10. Okay? So if you see minus, it's the same as saying that number is a negative. So if you have -11 minus 10, you have a -11 and a -10, -21, right? Now let's do a row of them where there's a few together. Oh, let's do subtracting a negative first before we do a long string of them. How about if we have -4 minus a -3? Okay, subtracting, we're changing that and changing the sign behind it, right? Change it, so it's changing to adding a positive. So now we have a negative and a positive. Sign of the larger and subtract them. 4 minus 3 is 1. Okay? If you look on your sheet, anywhere it says minus negative, you change it to plus positive. Minus negative is plus positive. If it just said minus, change it to adding a negative. And minus is adding a negative. So these examples here, there's enough examples. There's a negative and a positive, positive and positive, negative and negative, and then a positive negative. So there's examples there if you forget. Okay, let's do where we have a string of them. Like number 65. 18 minus -15 minus 3 minus -5 plus 2. Okay, before we collect positive and negative numbers, change all the subtraction to adding the opposite. So this is minus negative, so add the opposite. This -3 here is adding a -3. Okay? Minus negative is adding a positive. So we actually only have one that stayed negative, right? This one stayed negative. So the rest of these are all positives. You can add those all together. 18, 15, 3, oops, I was going to put 15, 5, and 2. So 10, 23, 2, 3, 4. You have 43 positives and 3 negatives. When you have a positive and a negative, sign of the larger, so it's going to be a positive answer. You don't have to write the positive. And subtract them. So you have 40 altogether right there. Okay? Yes?
Were you supposed to add the 3 in there also?
No.
This 3, I just brought it down right
No,
there.
on your addition on the left.
I did. 8. There's 10, 23. so I put a 3 here.
So you add in.
You added the negative 3.
Oh, I added the 3, I shouldn't have, huh? Oh, you're right, I shouldn't have done that, that should have been 20. Okay, that answer's wrong. We still have 3 negatives, but we only have 18, 15, 5, and 2. 10, 20. So we only had 40 positives. 40 positives and 3 negatives. Now we'll get the right answer. What is it?
37.
37, right. Yeah, I messed up. It's easy to mess up on these things. Okay, you're going to use these same rules with fractions. Same rules with decimals. You still look at the signs. Let's do a fraction one. Bless you. Number 45 says negative 5/8 minus negative 3/4. Okay, still, you want to change minus negative to plus positive. Okay, we're adding a negative and a positive, so we're going to be subtracting them, aren't we? But we don't know which one's bigger till we get a common denominator. So let's do the common denominator first. 8 and 4, the common denominator is 8. We're going to leave the signs with it just like it is now. Okay, this one was 5, it stays 5. 4 times 2, so 3 times 2. So this one is 6/8 and 5/8. 6/8 is larger, right? It's larger than 5/8, so our answer is going to be positive. And then we subtract the numbers. So 6/8 minus 5/8 is 1/8. So that's your answer. Let's do another fraction and then we'll do a decimal. How about negative 7/10 minus 10/15? Okay, change minus to adding a negative, okay? Where it says minus, make it adding a negative. So we have a negative and a negative, we're going to be adding them. We still need our common denominator though, right? So what's our common denominator? 30. That's the smallest one we could use. Let's keep our signs. Okay, 10 times 3 is 30. 7 times 3 is 21. 15 times what? Times 2 is 30. So the top times 2 gives you 20. Okay, now look at it as if you were just doing negative 21 plus a negative 20. 2 negatives, so what's the sign going to be?
Negative.
Negative, and what are you going to do, add or subtract?
Add.
If they're the same, you add them. You're adding, but it's going to be negative, right? 21 plus 20?
41.
41
30.
over 30. Okay, you could go ahead and change that into a mixed number if you want to. This one, actually, the book left it. They're real bad about doing that. I would have changed it into -1 and 11/30. So that you don't leave improper fractions. Okay, let's do some decimals. It's the same rules. Same. Let's do 7 minus 10.53. Change subtraction to adding a negative. Okay, we have a positive and a negative. What do we do with the positive and negative? Sign of the marger, which one's bigger?
Negative.
Negative. And then we're gonna subtract the numbers. Okay, to subtract them, you gotta put the biggest one on top, right? You don't put a 7 on top and then put 10 under it. So to subtract, you gotta put the big number on top. We're subtracting. So let's make zeros there. 3 minus 0, 3 minus 5 minus 0, 10 minus 7 is 3. So it's negative 3.53. Okay? And I think that pretty much covers the main rules. You just have to do a lot of practice. And so you have a lot of homework to do, a lot of practice. So don't use calculators and cheat. Try to do it in your head so that you'll know how to do it in your head. Okay? Let me turn it on. Okay.